Have you painted a sunset with cold wax and oil paint? I hadn't either until last week. I'm Pat Scrivener from Scrivener Art and Design on Vancouver Island. Last week, I did a demonstration for an art group in Calgary. So I decided to use a photo reference for my painting, and you'll see that in the video. And I worked with cold wax and oil paint, and I've left the people's questions in the video. So the video does get cut off near the end, but you will see most of the painting, and I'll show you some of the finished painting as well as photographs. So I'll see you on the other side. So I am going to mix some blue and some red. To get something quite dark here. So by working with a limited palette, if you don't already, you can get a very harmonious painting because everything works together, because it's all made out of the same colors. When you pick your primaries as well, you want to pick primaries that don't have a whole bunch of colors in them, like that they're a single hue. That way you're not mixing a whole bunch of colors together. But I do use other colors straight out of the tube too, and I might spring for something later. We'll see. But right now, let's get in this dark. Now, I might put a piece of tape there, but my paint is wet, so probably I want to keep a fairly straight line where the water meets the tree line. So I'm just going to use this blade here to guide me on that line. Yeah, so I'm just kind of feathering this up a little bit to give it a little bit more soft line, something that might look like they were trees. So I think in the water there's reflection, there's a light coming through, but there's also dark coming through from underneath. So I think I am going to put some dark in there as well. I'm going to push this more blue, and I can see, looks like I'm going to run out of blue. So I think I'll put this at the bottom here. And I'll put it somewhere the rocks are as well. Okay, that's good. And now I'm going to work up in this big area, and I'm going to put in that little bit of variation, some mauve. So my sky is going to be blue, mauve, and pink and peach, pink and orangey colors. So you can tell, it's a little bit purple. You can tell that the first layer of wax has gone into the paper. I'm not lifting it up, so that's good. Let's see. Try this. So I'm probably not going to narrate all the way through, just because once I really start working, it's hard for me to do both things, talk and paint. I think I'm going to tone that down slightly. So I'm just kind of putting some color in. I'm going to be blending all of this together. Just trying to get some color down. I don't use a palette knife a lot, but I am right now just to put more paint on, and then I'm going to come back in with my scraper here and start blending that. I'm going to clean this off. So I'm going to do some blending and then I'll put more paint on here. I think I'm going to have to mix up some more blue. So you're probably quite aware as artists that it's quite easy to make brown by blending colors together. So that is something that you want to be mindful of, that you don't end up with some kind of big mud pie happening.
So Pat, it seems to me that if you were painting in acrylic and you use an acrylic gel to go with it, you would extend the color into it, much like you did with the wax into the oil paint.
Yeah.
So the problem, there's a difference, of course, with oil and acrylic. And then acrylic, of course, dries faster. And with oil, you have a problem in keeping the colors from mixing in places you don't want them to mix in. So is one of the advantages of using the wax, is it something to do with the different colors not mixing as well with whatever's underneath? Like, I believe you mentioned that the yellow was staying as a yellow background. It wasn't mixing in with the color you put on top of it. Did I get that right?
Yeah, the yellow is pretty much dry. Yeah, just a little bit lifts up. So it depends how you work too. A lot of people have trouble working with oil, cold wax and oil wet into wet, because I use this technical term, they smoosh it too much, meaning they over blend and they start picking up the colors from underneath because they're putting way too much pressure on their tool, whether it be a blade or a palette knife or whatever. So if you're a palette knife painter, or you know people who are, palette knife painters tend to dab their paint onto the surface, the very light kind of touch that they're building up this texture. I don't use my palette knife like that until the end of the painting, but I think it's a lot of this not over blending is about how you use your tool. So it's a very light touch opposed to, you lay it on opposed to scraping it off. So maybe you want to scrape it off. Okay, so watch this. I didn't like that. I got back to yellow, right? But that's not true. I want that there. So this paint is kind of sitting on top of the surface of my yellow, and perhaps because there's wax in it, it isolates it a bit. But the beauty of, well, oil paint in general is that you can blend your paint. And with acrylic, you need a lot of mediums in it. And even with that, I can't really get the same blending as I do with this.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. I don't know if I answered your question or just got on a ramble. Okay, so I want to put a little bit of orange color variation in this area. I want to get rid of some of this yellow here. Okay, so I have some lines in there that I'm not in love with, but I'm gonna just leave that for the moment, and I'm gonna come down and start working on this. Get rid of this bright yellow, and hopefully I didn't make a mistake putting that dark there, that I can continue on alla prima here.
Your orange is a beautiful color.
Yeah, so that's it's not even orange. Like I said, it's cadmium yellow, deep hue mixed with some white. And I do have cad orange too, but anyway, this seems to work good. So I think I need to throw a bit of pink into that equation as well.
How do you clean off your dryer?
Yes, good question. Well, I'm really bad at cleaning anything off, to be honest with you. But if you clean it off right away, the thing you do to clean it is take a paper towel and roll it on the paper towel and get as much off as possible. Then you can use, to clean any of your equipment up, if it's still fresh, you can use vegetable oil, like the cheapest vegetable oil you can buy, like as in canola oil. You can use that and rub it on and you'll get most of it off. If you let it dry for a long time, you got to put solvent on a tray and then use solvent. Yeah, it's the only way.
So cheaper vegetable oil is the trick.
Yeah.
Very clever.
That's the trick. And also to clean your hands. If you got it on your hands, the vegetable oil will take off a lot of it. So in this area, I'm going to try and get something rock-like. This is where my black paint is going to come in handy. I'm going to put in some dark shapes down here. Okay, so now mix some gray. So I am adding black. I don't always use black, but it's just a little bit faster than mixing everything. So okay, I need some kind of gold happening in there. So when you're painting your painting, you want to be sure that you paint your whole painting. So in other words, if you put one color somewhere, you put it somewhere else. So it's just not isolated. Okay, how are we doing here? I'm gonna go back. Let's see, I think I'll put a little more pink in this area. So with Alla Prima, I need a bit more. You know, there's a point where you have to stop. You start picking up too much from underneath, and you might not be able to absolutely finish your last layer or little bits, but we'll see how it goes here. It still seems to be okay. So one of the downsides of working flat is that you really don't have the perspective of your painting the same. So it is a bit of a disadvantage as you get working larger. If this was like a little 6x6 painting, it wouldn't be that big a deal. But when it's bigger, it's you know, you want to see it up on an easel eventually. but I do have the monitor, so I can kind of look back and forth and see where I'm at. It's kind of ugly right now. Okay, let's get to work and do some fixing here. Take some of that off. Okay, so I wanted to soften this line again, so I'm going to come back in with some more of this color, and I am going to be lifting, as you can see. I'm lifting some of the mauve from underneath, but I'm okay about that because it's just giving it a little bit of perspective. So I can actually pull my blade up. Well, I got too much light on it. Okay, well, it is what it is. So I love that you can really manipulate this stuff and do different things with it, but you can't overwork it. You lose your freshness if you work too much. So I don't like this straight line here. I'll try and blend that out a bit. So I've used white tape around the edges of this paper so I will have a white border. Now this is white artist tape. I don't generally use that in my studio just because it's quite a bit more money, but you can tape it with blue or mauve painter's tape as well, and that works well. So it seems like I've got quite a white kind of hole in the center there, so that's going to have to go, that we don't want a white hole in the center. So I'm going to put orange in on top of that, and I'm going to, let's see where I go. That's better. So now I want to add a little bit of light. I don't like this part. I'm going to change that a bit. Let's see, what am I going to do? Oh, got a hair or something. Yeah, I just want to break this up a bit. It looks a bit too much like a line. And I am making some green there. I'm starting to lift up quite a bit, so that's where, you know, you're going to notice that you get mud happening. So I don't like this, so I'm going to just get rid of some of it. Again, I picked up something there. So yes, there is such a thing as over blending and getting too much blending going on, and then you can get some mud. So okay, that doesn't seem to be connected. Yeah, so now it's becoming more and more challenging now to work wet into wet because I am starting to lift stuff up. You may not be able to see it, but I can start to feel it. So, okay, I'm still not happy with that area. I want to try feathering that out a bit. Okay. Fingers are always good too. Just want to add a little bit of lightness back in. Okay.
Pat, if you decided you wanted to change it quite a bit, would you be better off scraping it off like you showed us before, or waiting like a day or however long it takes for it to set and then covering it up?
Yeah, I would probably come back into it, opposed to scraping it off myself, because I prefer to have more paint on it, and I like the history of it, so I very seldom would scrape anything off. Even with acrylic paint, I don't use white gesso over my paintings and start them over, but I work back into them and they become something new. So it's just, it's a personal preference, but I just don't like gessoing over. So I last year painted over a painting that had flowers on it and it became figures, and you can see the flowers, some of the petals in the dresses. It's quite interesting. So yeah, I like to leave the history. Okay, I'm going to put a little more yellow in there. So I just want to work on this, bringing a bit of light into that area. So I'm blending these two together because one is too orange and the other is just a little too, no, that's not right. You guys have the advantage, you can see what I'm doing. I only see the little bit where I'm working unless I look back at the screen. Okay, so that added a bit of life. Okay, maybe add a little bit of gold into these rocks. Make some marks. A little bit more black. Probably with these, I'll have to work on it a bit more, but in any event. So palette knives are good for rocks, for sure. And I'm not really a palette knife painter, so it's not my expertise, but anyway, we'll give it a whirl. Good for rocks. Okay, so now I'm going to take a blade. Okay, so this is one of the beauties of cold wax, is that I can scrape back into the previous layer. So I'm actually going right down to the yellow. I hope you enjoyed that. It's always fun doing a live demo. You never know what results you're going to get and if you're going to completely bomb. I've kind of got the sunset bug now, so I'm going to be painting a few more before I go back to my figures. So watch for that. See you soon.